So 360-degree feedback is consisting of feedback you receive from, well, if it is a business model, and even if you look at ISKCON, it was incorporated, so it is corporation, though spiritual. And because Shoprol was an entrepreneur, it's actually corporate scheme with book sales and Jerusalem sales. So the feedback is consisting of 4 points, like the circle has. There are 4. It's 5 way of drawing. So yeah, we could put 4 lines. So the feedback you receive from those who are above you, like your boss, for example. Boss.
Or superiors.
Or superior, yeah. So
seniors.
Seniors, yeah. Whatever. Everyone understands. So second aspect is your peer group. Those who are, or your colleagues. Then the third one is employees, or those who work for you, dependents. And fourth is your customers. And the central point is self-assessment. Right? So that's your 360-degree feedback. And you can understand that it applies to any model, whether it is corporate model, whether it is family model, whether it is spiritual model. You always have superiors, equals, those who are junior to your position, people you do things for, and yourself, right? Okay, thank you.
Would you like to give Mara some feedback on this? Anybody? Okay. So, please turn to the person next to you and give them some feedback on something that you would like to communicate to the person next to you. Just the person next to you. Just turn to the person next to you and give them some feedback about something that you would like to communicate to them. Just a couple of moments. Switch over if you haven't done that yet. Switch over if you have not done yet. Very, very, very
Thank you.
Did you like what the other person told you? Yeah. Huh? You did? Okay, please, we need your attention. Can you hear me? Why did you like what you heard? Not what he said, but why did you like it? It felt good, it felt nice. Because of what? It was unexpected, it was about you. Did it relate to you? Was it something that was relatable? Did he say something nice? Pretty much?
Yeah.
Yeah? Who heard something nice? Okay, we got something. Who heard some appreciation? Okay, good. So there's a rule in feedback, it's called the sandwich. You start off with something nice. You say something nice, you capture people's attention. Then, if you're actually a real friend, you will show some room for improvement. That's the middle part. You know, our tofu burger or, you know, enchilada, whatever you call it. So here, this is the room for improvement. Did anybody hear some room for improvement? Did anybody get some constructive criticism? Something that they felt like, yeah, you know, thanks for telling that, you know, I need to work on this. This could be helpful. Did you feel like that?
Not exactly, because it was nice approach and kind of teasing of me.
Nice approach, but teasing. Okay, so teasing is not appreciated. Okay? How was your situation? You raised your hand?
Maybe some advice what I can improve on, so that was really
That you what?
that I can improve on the
That
area.
you can improve on. Okay, so advice was well taken. So it was objective? It was real?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Good, thank you. We're not going to get into the details because this is your, it's your private life, you know. We're not going to mess with your private life. But do you feel it's necessary to give people feedback and show them room for improvement? Or do you just want to give people nice and appreciation and you're okay, I'm okay, everybody goes home happy?
Depends on circumstances and situation.
Like for instance, if you're
I'm meeting someone first time and I don't know the person.
yeah,
I can say something nice about
Yeah.
you're nicely dressed, whatever.
and that person will like you. But what if we're talking now, you're working together in a partnership, in an organization, on a project, and all you hear people say, it's wonderful. Doesn't that freak you out? Doesn't that make you feel like, am I in the right place? Everybody just says wonderful. And fluff, you know, they just throw out cotton candy, you know. Everything is just ecstatic. They have that, you know, wide-eyed, eerie look on their face. If you want to actually be an entrepreneur and get things done, you need to have some realism, some sense of sanity, some sense of where you are and where you're going. So, learning how to give people advice in a proper way. Anuttama Prabhu is going to come and do the communication seminar. Is that correct? He will speak about that, how to communicate. Huh?
On the 18th.
On the 18th. So just this is a warm-up, you know.
Oh no, 13th.
13th. Okay, earlier than that. And then at the end of the sandwich, there is again something nice because you want to always leave them with something nice, you know, with something pleasant to remember that they're like, yeah, I'd like to meet this person again. You know, it was a nice person. All right, they also said a few things, you know, where there's some work to be done, but overall, it was a good experience. So, try out the sandwich approach for your interactions with people who are on your team, in your projects. If you deal with outsiders, you can use a different approach. You just praise them, you appreciate them, but do it in such a way that people will be able to relate to it, that they can take you seriously. Because if you go up to a regular person and you tell them, you're a gentleman and a scholar, You know what happens? Most people will actually believe it. Believe it or not, they will actually believe it. They will buy it. Sometimes they will call you out on it, and they will say, "You're just bullshitting me. You're not sincere." But you know, if you actually mean it, and you actually are sincere in your appreciation, you can get away with a lot. So, learn this art, learn how to work with this. There's a few pitfalls, what to avoid. I won't get into it, but that's a topic that's interesting. Maharaj brought up the point of self-assessment. Why self-assessment, according to Maharaj's realization, the most important of all the different types of assessment. And self doesn't just mean ourself, but also there's a supreme self also there in our heart called Paramatma, the internal guide. Or is that one of the other three? There's the small self and the capital self. And they're both there, residing in the same heart. You know the two birds in the tree? Just look out into the tree. We've got a lot of green trees and green parrots here. So, why are those two the most important form of assessment? Anybody?
How can we criticize someone else if we suffer the same problem? If we're giving someone feedback for something that we ourselves haven't worked out.
It will be sounding hypocritical. Whenever we point a finger at something, you know, three fingers are pointing back at me. I can only see mistakes because I have, to some degree, to some form or capacity. Sadhus are people who are free from the propensity to criticize others. You know, criticizing people and offering constructive criticism are two different things. Oftentimes devotees are scared. They think like, no, I can't say anything. Have you found in certain countries or cultures that the concept of assessment or feedback is like unknown? You have to practically threaten them with a stick and threaten them and tell them, I'm going to beat you unless you give me feedback. Because it's just not in the culture. To tell somebody, especially a teacher or a senior or an outsider, what you think of them is very scary. When you're working in a professional environment, you have to learn the art of how to communicate and formulate that feedback. And that has a lot to do with how you formulate your internal assessment and your feedback that you give yourself. Do you do self-assessment? Anyone keeping a journal? Anyone having a day review before you know, when you put your head on the pillow or on the rock or on the soil before you pass out at night? Do you internalize, ask yourself the questions? What are the questions that you could ask yourself? What are some of the questions for self-assessment? Yes?
What can I do better?
Okay. Why not start with something positive? What went good today? Okay? Don't be too hard on yourself, okay? Be a mensch, you know? Be kind. Start with a sandwich, okay? Do you like sandwiches? No.
Yes.
Yes.
Pizza.
What went well today? Is that good? Oftentimes we look too much into the negative. If you actually look into your strong sides, that's where you can make the most impact. That's where you can actually score the most and achieve the most. So look, what are my successes? And acknowledge them. Also acknowledge that it might not be your success, that you might just be part of something bigger. But acknowledge that and appreciate that. In the Gita, Krishna says, Yad yad vibhutimat sattvam, srimat urjitam evava, tattagatas. What's the rest? Anyway, you can look it up. In that verse, Krishna says that I am the ability in people, and all these abilities, all these qualities are just a spark of my splendor. They're just a little tiny bit of my potency. So acknowledge what went right, and then ask yourself, okay, what's another thing that you could ask yourself? Where is there room for improvement? You already mentioned it. And then you leave it at that, or you take it a step further. What's the next step? You know, you do this mentally, or you can write it down. What's the next step?
What can I do different?
What can I change? Einstein defined insanity by trying to do the same thing and expecting a different result. Under that, most people in this world will be deemed insane. They're trying to do the same thing and they're expecting a different result. Have we ever done the same thing and expected a different result? Has this ever happened to you? Or is it just me? It has, right? We're doing the same thing. We're just kicking our toes. We're banging our head against the wall. And we're cursing, yelling, screaming, pointing fingers, blaming, insulting, justifying, not realizing that we need to change our approach. We need to slightly change our paradigm. When we do these leadership courses, people usually come with the question, just tell me how to do it, you know? Just give me the magic. Just tell me how to do it, and I'll go and do it. And then you start talking about principles and values and character and foundational stuff and building your foundation. Sometimes people get a little irritated, they get a little annoyed. Gopi Paranadhana Prabhu, who helped to translate and comment on the 10th, 11th, and 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, he also translated Priya Bhagavatamrita and Renda. Sanskrit school at Govardhan, one of our most accomplished scholars, he had a quote on his desk in Govardhan. And that quote said that when the inside and the outside becomes the same, that's when real preaching starts. When the inside and the outside becomes the same, that's when real preaching starts. So that means what you see is what you get. That you're actually authentic. We stand in our own truth. So much for feedback. By the way, how are you feeling right now? Are you feeling anything? Not really. You're still in the post-lunch coma. So we'll try to come up with something more exciting here. Once the book distributors, this is December, it's the marathon, so I'm going to talk a little bit about book distribution. Once they went to Srila Prabhupada in Los Angeles and they asked him, how can we increase our book distribution? How can we increase our outreach? How can we be more effective in our way of presenting this? And Srila Prabhupada, he had a very interesting response. Would you like to hear his response? Yes. Are you sure?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yes.
Sorry, time is up, you know. Tell them. Just teach them how to be sincere. When you're sincere, and then he pointed towards his heart and he said, then the Lord in the heart will guide them.